Do you have people in your life who just leave you feeling drained, judged, and small? You know that feeling, like you're walking on eggshells and nothing you do is ever good enough? If you're tired of all that negativity and you're ready to get your energy back, then this video is for you. We're going to walk through how to set boundaries with critical people, why criticism hurts, and where it comes from. First off, let's just say it. If you feel exhausted, you're not imagining it. Constant criticism is incredibly draining mentally and emotionally. It's like a slow leak in your energy tank. You might catch yourself replaying their words over and over, trying to figure out what you did wrong. This can lead to anxiety, kill your motivation, and just crush your self-esteem over time. Your brain can even get stuck in a state of defense where you're always expecting a threat, overthinking every little thing you say just to avoid getting judged. You can start to believe that something's fundamentally wrong with you, and that affects everything: your confidence, your other relationships, all of it. But here's the most important thing I want you to hear today. Their criticism is almost never about you. It tells you way more about the critic than the person they're criticizing. Highly critical behavior usually comes from a few places, and they're all about the critic, not you. Often it's a defense mechanism that's covering up their own insecurity and low self-esteem. Pointing out what they see as flaws in others gives them a quick, temporary feeling of being superior, which helps them forget their own feelings of inadequacy. Criticism can also be a form of projection where they're basically pinning their own issues and faults on you. Sometimes it's because they have a rigid perfectionist mindset and they hold everyone, including themselves, to impossible standards. In other cases, it's just a learned behavior from their own childhood, and they're repeating a cycle they don't even know how to break. Understanding this helps you take their comments less personally. You're not the problem, you're just the target for their internal stuff. So now that we know their criticism is a reflection of them and not you, the real question is, what can you do about it? How do you protect your peace without blowing up your relationships? Let's get into 5 practical steps you can start using today to set some firm, healthy boundaries and take back your emotional space. Step 1, figure out your limits. You can't set a boundary if you don't know what it is. It sounds simple, but a lot of us are so used to just going with the flow and pleasing others that we've lost touch with our own limits. So, boundary setting starts with a little self-awareness. Take a minute to think about it. What specific comments, topics, or behaviors make you feel drained, angry, or just plain small? Is it the unsolicited advice about your career, the backhanded compliments about how you look, judgmental comments about your parenting? Or maybe it's that one person who just sucks all the air out of the room with their negativity. Get really specific. Write it down if that helps. When you know your emotional triggers, you can set boundaries proactively instead of just reacting when you're already upset. This isn't about building a wall to keep people out. It's about figuring out what you need to feel safe and respected. Remember, setting a boundary is a huge act of self-care. You're not being difficult or selfish. You're simply treating yourself like someone worth protecting. Your peace is a priority, and you have every right to protect it. Step 2, communicate clearly and calmly with I statements. Okay, once you know your limits, it's time to communicate them. The goal isn't to start a fight, but to be clear. And the best tool for this is the I statement. An I statement lets you express your feelings and needs without blaming the other person, which makes it much harder for them to get defensive. You're shifting the focus from "you always do this" to "this is how I feel and this is what I need." It's a respectful but really powerful way to state your boundary. Let's look at a few power phrases you can try. For unsolicited advice, instead of getting annoyed, you could say, I appreciate you're trying to help, but I'm not looking for advice on this right now. I just need to figure it out on my own. Or even a simple, thanks for your input, I'll think about that. For a judgmental comment, you could try, when you make comments about my parenting and my career, I feel hurt. I need you to stop. Or a bit more direct, I'm not up for discussing this with you. To handle pushback, if they just won't let it go, you can say, I've made my decision and I need you to respect that. Or even simpler, that doesn't work for me. Your delivery is everything. Try to speak in a calm, firm, and neutral tone. You're not asking for permission, you're stating a fact about what you need. When you avoid an accusatory tone, you keep the focus on the boundary itself, not on them, which gives you the best shot at actually being heard. Step 3. Have a consequence and be ready to use it. Here's the part that can feel a little scary, but it's absolutely key. A boundary without a consequence is just a suggestion. If someone keeps ignoring your limits, you have to be ready to follow through with an action. Now, a consequence doesn't have to be some big dramatic ultimatum. A lot of the time, the best consequence is just removing yourself from the situation. You're taking back control over your exposure to the negativity. Here's what this looks like in practice. First, you state your boundary clearly. Then, you state the consequence if it gets crossed. For example, I've asked you not to give me unsolicited advice about my finances. If it comes up again, I'm going to change the subject. Or, I feel uncomfortable when you make negative comments about my partner. If it keeps happening, I'm going to head out. Then comes the most important part. You have to follow through. If they bring up your finances again, you say, like I said, I'm not discussing this. Anyway, did you see that new movie? If they keep criticizing your partner, you get up and say, it was good to see you, but I've got to go now. And then you actually leave. The first few times you do this will probably feel really hard, but when you consistently enforce your boundaries, you're teaching people how you expect to be treated. You're showing that you respect yourself, and that helps them learn to respect your limits too. If any of this is hitting home and you know that sinking feeling in your stomach when dealing with a critical person, do me a favor and hit that like button to let me know. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Sharing your story could be the thing someone else needs to read today to feel a little less alone. Step 4, practice the power of no and a strategic disengagement. So many of us are taught to think that no is a bad word. We feel like we owe people these long, detailed excuses for why we can't do something. But here's a truth that can set you free. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone a big explanation for your boundaries. Practicing saying no without over-explaining is a total game changer. You can be polite but firm. No, thank you. I appreciate the offer, but I'll have to pass. I'm not able to commit to that. That's it. When you resist the urge to justify your decision, you don't give them anything to argue with. Along with saying no, you can also master the art of strategic disengagement. Not every critical comment needs a big reaction. In fact, critical people often feed on getting a reaction out of you. When you refuse to engage, you take their power away. This is sometimes called the gray rock method, where you make yourself as boring and uninteresting as a gray rock. Here are a few disengagement phrases. I hear you. That's one way to look at it. Let's just agree to disagree. Or you can just pivot to a totally different topic. Silence can be powerful too. You don't have to fill every awkward pause. By choosing not to bite at every jab, you're making a conscious choice to protect your own energy. You're deciding that your inner peace is way more important than winning an argument. Step 5, be patient, be consistent, and start small. Setting boundaries is a skill, and just like any other skill, it takes practice. It's not usually a single conversation, it's an ongoing process. And let's be real, people, especially those you're close to, will probably test your new boundaries. They're used to a certain dynamic with you, and your change might feel weird to them. This is why consistency is everything. Every single time you calmly restate your boundary and follow through, you're reinforcing the new rule. It's like training a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger you get. If the idea of setting a boundary with the most critical person in your life feels like too much right now, start smaller. Pick a lower stakes situation or a person who's a bit more reasonable. Practice saying no to a small request, or set a timer for a phone call with a relative who tends to be negative. Every little win will build your confidence and make it easier to handle the tougher relationships. And please be patient with yourself. You might mess up your words. You might feel guilty at first. That's totally normal. This whole thing is a journey of unlearning old people-pleasing habits and learning to put your own well-being first. Acknowledge that this is hard, and don't forget to celebrate your progress.